Hello. This is Jonathan, and you're listening to the Johnny Talks podcast, the place where we help you achieve your financial goals. Hola, amigos. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. And if you're a new listener to the show, special warm welcome to you. I really appreciate you tuning into the show. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. I appreciate it even more. In today's episode, we will speak to my friend Sunitha from Griffiths Property Group. We met last year at Fincon, and it quickly appeared that she's passionate about real estate. She started to build her real estate portfolio only 2 years ago and now owns 4 properties, all while being active in her full-time job. Suni will share why she entered the real estate market in the first place, how as a landlord she's dealing with the COVID-19 situation, and how she got creative and managed to finance those properties. She also converted a long-term rental unit into an Airbnb, and this is what we discuss in the second part of the show, how you can turn that long-term rental into a profitable Airbnb venture. This episode is for you if you're hesitant to enter the real estate market as an investor, and as well if you're keen to run a successful Airbnb investment. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Hello, Sunitha. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. Very good. Glad to speak to you. So I'm calling you live to Indianapolis. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, awesome. And yes, Sunitha, we've met at Fincon last year. It's already quite some months ago. It's like 7-8 months. And one of the first things that came out when we were at the bar was that you, but that's where we met, right?
Yeah, well, that's where the best networking happens. It's midnight at a bar over some bourbon.
and exactly. And here we are talking on the podcast. And one of the first things that came out of the conversation is that you are passionate about real estate and you started your own kind of empire, let's say.
That's very kind.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I understood it, at least. So maybe you can clarify yourself if I have misunderstood due to the bourbon. So, can you tell us a little bit about your real estate ventures, Sunitha?
Sure. Yeah. So I started investing in real estate about 2 years ago. I got into real estate because I had grown disillusioned with the needs of corporate America. I still have a corporate job. I work in finance, but it's very demanding. And while there are definitely pros to taking that path, I definitely wanted a future where I could better influence my financial needs and my kind of loosen the constraints of what I could do based on time and finances, which my corporate job basically controlled. So I started looking into other ways to kind of take my finances to the next level. And I looked into a lot of things. I looked into like travel hacking. I looked obviously into stocks, index funds. I was already investing in those through like my 401k and my Roth IRA and stuff. And everything seems good. I did a bunch of those things. I still do. I still invest heavily in stocks. I still travel hack when I travel. But I really wanted something where I could better control and have as much diversity as possible. And that's when I found real estate. And so like I really liked real estate because I could control kind of which houses I bought. You know, if I bought into an index fund, I have no control over which companies will be invested in. You know, I like the fact that if I could front load a lot of the work, then I'd basically be paid in perpetuity for the rest of my life. Like I get a monthly paycheck, you know, with having to do very little work once the unit is set up, which is a little bit harder to find in the stock market. You know, like I could probably take out withdrawals as I get older and figure out ways to do that. But right now, everything, every month I get a check that I can easily reinvest. So I really liked that. And then I also liked the ultimate diversification piece of it. You know, like I could choose how diversified I wanted to be, whether it was in a small house, a big apartment building, based on geography, based on income class, based on asset class. I just felt like that was with all of the different ways I could hedge against risk, that was really the best path for me. So that was why I chose real estate.
Okay, that's very good. So you like the tangible aspect, unlike, for example, and I think that's one argument that many people have instead when it's compared to stocks, because stocks, I like it as well. It also gives a revenue, but you need to dig more into the details, and you might need to enter into financial reports, etc., and then really understand the business. And it's all different businesses. I mean, if you invest in 10 companies, ideally, you should have done your research for those 10 companies, which might have totally different business models. While you say, I mean, if I understand correctly, you say, look, I'm going to invest in a few properties of such a type. It's not that it's simpler, it's just different, but at least you have a feel that it will be better for you and that you will be able to profit from it as well. And I understand then that you mentioned the recurring revenues. So you're looking at buying rental properties, not fixing and flipping or other strategies?
Correct. So I buy, they're usually distressed because when I entered into this, we were not in a market where I could get good deals that would cash flow unless the properties weren't in great shape. So I buy them distressed, I fix them up, and then I get mostly long-term tenants. And I do have one short-term rental, which I think we will touch on later. But yeah, I'm all about the aspect of getting that recurring semi-passive income, especially since I have a full-time job still, fixing and flipping, that you only make money as long as you're active. And there's a limit to how much I can be active with the full-time job.
Yeah.
And there's also the fact that I started 2 years ago when people were already talking about a potential recession. We didn't know when that would happen or when that would hit. And being a new investor, I didn't want to be sitting there holding the bag if say something like coronavirus actually ended up happening a year ago. I just felt like that was a risky maneuver for someone like me. So I have just focused on buying and holding real estate for long-term appreciation and as well as the cash flow.
Okay, that's very good. And then I have a question, because I could think that, with this coronavirus, the stock markets, we all follow the news or we all have seen some headlines. But for a real estate investor, I had a question really for myself, because I'm thinking, so the real estate, people need a roof, so they will rent a place. But I mean, if they lose their job or if they become unemployed, I mean, how does it work then? I mean, I don't know if you are having issues right now with that, or if you thought about it.
Oh, I have thought about it. I think that's like the main thing that has dominated the thoughts of many landlords in this last month and a half or so. It was definitely a big cause for concern, especially when like April 1st came around, because people have been quarantined for several weeks by then, depending on where you were in the US. And we had no idea if people could pay or not, or what would be happening. So the first month came and went, and thankfully they could pay. And that was a massive relief. Because there are a lot of discussions going around about whether landlords should forfeit rents for the month and stuff. And while that would be certainly something I would love to do to help others in need, at the same time, I have a brand new business basically, and mortgages and property taxes and insurance to pay for, which is a lot. I have 5 properties, I have 7 doors, so across seven different homes, essentially, that can be pretty expensive. So it definitely was worrisome it would have been worrisome if multiple people couldn't pay, but between the job and my reserves, it's really, really important to have adequate reserves so that when times like these hit, if a couple people can't pay, you can still pay your bills and keep the property, because you don't want to lose the property, which is essentially your business, because other people can't pay. Ultimately, that responsibility is yours. So in the situation that I'm in right now, I mean, of course it could happen. Like, I could have a lot of things go wrong at once, and I could be in a position where I'd lose my properties, but a lot would have to go wrong. I'd have to lose my job. I'd have to have multiple tenants not pay for a couple months, like this, that, and the other. So for now, like, I think I'm in an okay position, but I don't know, time will tell. It's definitely a hard time, but people do need housing. And then in terms of like them being able to pay or not pay, if you have like a good tenant, it's really worth kind of like working together and pulling together like a payment plan potentially, depending on their situation, like in Indianapolis, like evictions have been halted. Like you can't evict a tenant for not paying, which makes sense because a lot of people don't have jobs right now, so like that totally makes sense. But there can be those conversations to keep that tenant in place, help them work out the situation so that it can be a win-win outcome.
Mm-hmm. No, very good. I hope for the best. And here, at least in Luxembourg, if that can reassure you, the government announced measures to go out of the lockdown. For example, now from this weekend or early next week.
That's good.
Hold on, it's only some shops like the flower shops. You can go to flower shops, and you can go to the do-it-yourself shop. Where you buy hammers and wood planks.
Like what we have is Home Depot, where you buy all the stuff for your house. Yeah.
So those shops can start to open, and then little by little there is a plan every 2 weeks, and then I think in a few weeks the schools will start to reopen. I mean.
Oh, wow.
It's been announced 2 days ago. So we will see how that plans out. And we will see at the time of the airing of the show, where we are. But at least there's already talks about, going out of the lockdown. So it's a pain. This situation is a pain for a lot of people with health, etc. But the light at the end of the tunnel is in sight. And maybe it will be a bit delayed in the US. So let's cross our fingers that it won't take that long, but okay, we will all have to participate or help each other out.
Do our part. Yes.
Exactly.
Be responsible.
Be responsible.
Behind
exactly.
What's happening. Yes.
Correct. And then, Suni, I have a question because you started investing in real estate. And to me, real estate, I like it. I own a rental property myself. And I also had the garages before, and I've also investigated a lot. You need to do your research as well. We were talking about stocks, but real estate, you need to do a lot of research yourself.
100%. Yeah,
exactly.
100%. It's just a different kind of research.
It's a different kind of research, as you say. So my question to you is, how did you get started? Where did you look for information? Who did you talk to?
I talked to basically anyone who would talk to me. I'm not even joking. Like, I would just send out emails. Like, there's like the Bigger Pockets forum. I love Bigger Pockets. I credit them with like basically providing the platform where I could find and create my entire business. Every person was either directly or indirectly found on Bigger Pockets. It was amazing. So I would talk to other people who had invested, who usually buying long distance, because at the time I was still living in Boston. So Boston's on the East Coast of the US. Indianapolis is in the middle of the country. So we're like 1,000 miles apart. And I initially thought maybe I'd buy in Boston, but Boston it's one of the biggest cities in the country. It's really expensive. And like, it would take me forever to like get a down payment together, because houses or multifamilies or whatever, like, you can't get land for like less than $500,000. Like, it's just really, really expensive. And so I did a bunch of research on different cities in America, like how their economic growth was, how like their job growth was, how income growth was, all these different things. And then eventually ended up on Indianapolis. And then like, once I chose the area, there's also like, there's so many different ways to invest, right? Like you said, you can fix and flip. You can do a long-term rental. You can do a short-term rental. You can invest in notes. There's a million ways to do it. So it's also figuring out, like, for me, it was about building a new life, and a life that was free of those financial constraints of time and money that was kind of like boxing me in at my corporate job. So I really spent some time trying to figure out what I wanted that life to look like. And I wanted like that reoccurring income. I wanted to build that base so that I could kind of have my time free, which is why I chose long-term rentals to start off with. And so after choosing like the niche and understanding everything that I needed to learn about that niche, like once I chose long-term investing, then it's like, okay, does that mean like office space? Does that mean homes? Does that mean storage? Like what does that mean, and trying to understand which pieces and nuances of each strategy fit best with the life that I was trying to build in my personal capacity. So that ended up being residential homes. And then also even going down deeper, like every time, it's like investing it's like an onion when you're trying to learn. Like you peel off one layer and there's going to be another. And it's like your responsibility to keep peeling those off until you get to the center and you figure out like, and it's never, that onion's never done peeling, but But like, it's really important to keep digging deeper so that you fully understand what you're getting yourself into, right? So like, I chose Indianapolis. I chose long-term rentals. I chose homes in terms of long-term rentals. And it's like, okay, what kind of homes? Am I buying single families? Am I buying like 100-unit apartment complexes? Like, what are the nuances there? What does that require? What can I actually succeed at? That sort of thing. So after all of that, I decided to start off with like smaller residential. So anything under 4 units at the 4 units per property. And at this point, my portfolio is made up of single families and duplexes, kind of duplexes, but 2 units on a property. So that was kind of how I got there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. And one great thing with Bigger Pockets, I mean, I've listened to them as well. I went on their website. I'm in their forum. And one surprising...
They're amazing, huh?
It's great. And even as a European, it's fantastic because, and I told that to Mindy Jensen at Fincon as well, is that I managed to connect with people in Norway, people in Spain, people in Belgium.
That's amazing.
Yes, and then she was surprised herself because when I was in Norway, I managed to connect with a few guys, the Norwegian real estate investors, and we talked about deals and stuff like this. And I managed to find a guy, actually it's a Spanish guy living in Luxembourg, and we talked about stuff as well. So you can manage, and people reached out to me from Belgium. So even though, okay, the website is American, and of course the shows, the podcast episodes, etc., it's from an American perspective, and the financing option may not apply here, of course, it's different. But at least you can connect with local people through the forums.
Totally.
So it's a great 100%. Place to be, and yeah, if people really want to get more inspired or connect with people thinking about real estate and they don't know local people, at least they can start with the forum. So it's free to register and you can connect easily. So that's a great tip. And then once you were in Indianapolis, Suni, were you then contacting real estate agents or, I don't know, friends or connections? I mean, did you meet people to get to know the market as well?
A little bit, but not that much. So I was investing in Indianapolis before I lived in Indianapolis. So I networked within Bigger Pockets to find like the areas that would be good. I would be reading what everybody was saying and like taking it down and then doing my own research and comparing what I found to what I read. And then I found a property manager through my networking and like talked to her about like my goals and my needs and tried to understand like what she would recommend. I did the same thing with my agent, and I hired good people and talked to them after doing my own research to kind of corroborate what I had seen and felt.
Yeah. Okay. And then I have a question because you mentioned you have several properties and I was just wondering, well, you have a corporate job. Sure, you can save some money here and there. And how do you manage to afford to buy 3, 4, 5 properties?
By saving, like every penny, first off. So at the beginning, the first property I purchased conventionally, which means I went through a bank. And in the US, you have to put down like 20 to 25%.
That's already a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is a lot, but I'd been saving for a couple of years at that point. So I put that down. Then I paid cash to do the rehabs and repairs and then got renters in. And then then I had like one property, 2 doors. And then the next set of properties I got, they were in kind of like a package deal. So there was an investor selling 2 in the same area where I bought my first one. And they were actually 3 doors, a duplex and a single family. And I could only afford to buy one. And even that was stretching it. So the seller agreed to finance the other one. So essentially I went through the bank, put another 25% down on the larger property. And then when we closed, the bank gave him the money for the property, the full dollar value. And then that basically acted as my down payment, like the collateral that I had. So in his eyes. And so then for the 5th door, the 3rd property, we had a contract where basically he would be the bank. So we agreed upon an interest rate and I sent him a check every month for that property. And then 6 to 7 months later, I went to the bank and refinanced the property and paid him off in full. So I got into that third property, the fifth door, without any of my own money at the outset.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if this kind of things are possible here in Europe. So it's basically, okay, the traditional way, then the seller's financing. And then the third, it's kind of, the seller plays the bank and then you refinance.
Yeah.
And these techniques you learned basically through reading and through following Bigger Pockets, actually.
Yeah, and talking to other people. And then I also got the next unit that I got was when I moved to Indianapolis. So in the US, if you live in a house, you can put down less money. So instead of putting down 25%, I put down 7%. Got into the house. I have a roommate who helps pay the mortgage. So my living expenses are actually very low. And then my last property, my seventh door, I have an investor now because I've done this multiple times. Like, I know the market. I have the network for like the rehab and this, that, and the other. So I was able to find someone who would want to invest with me, and he provided the cash for the property, and I'm paying him an interest rate for that. And I will refinance him. I will refinance the property and exit him in 6 months.
That's excellent because that's the power which you don't have with stocks. I mean, I like stocks. I'm invested in stock markets, but with real estate, I mean, you can have all this leveraging opportunities. And for example, in my case, this is how I managed to build a bit of wealth. Is when I had my first apartment. It grew up in value, and I used the home equity line of credit. I think that's the equivalent in the US. So basically taking my own apartment as a security to buy other properties. I mean, it was just parking spots, but I was renting them out. So I was making money on my money. So that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. I did the same thing in the house that I'm in. I got a HELOC, and that paid for the rehab on that property that I bought with the investor. So I basically I have to pay the bank back, but I used a bunch of other people's money to buy that. And now I have renters moving in 2 weeks. So I'll use that money to pay off the loans, refinance out, and be good to go, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I think all these techniques, if people are interested, I think a great place, as we said, Bigger Pockets, start there, look for information, look for people in your country, in your neighborhood, who knows. And Suni, I mean, just to make it a bit broader, because otherwise it goes into the technical part. You also mentioned to me before this episode that there's one of the units that you converted from a regular rental unit to a long-term rental unit to an Airbnb, actually.
Yeah. So this happened last October, actually, like right after Fincon. The first property I purchased, there was like a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom main house. And then there was like a detached studio apartment, basically. We call it a carriage house. I don't know if that applies in Europe, but it was like completely detached from the main house. And it was like, it had its own bedroom, bathroom, kitchen. It was all very small, but it was an entirely functional living space of its own. Mm-hmm. So because it was small, and because it's older and it's like less functional, it's harder to get a long-term tenant in. I did get a long-term tenant. I could only charge $500 a month, and then they left after a year. So if you look at like the long-term business model, where you lose money is vacancy and turnover. And I just didn't think that, like, with the size of the unit, et cetera, I didn't think that my success rate would be super high if people would be leaving every year, which is likely. I mean, like, the kinds of people who tend to maybe not leave as much are like the families, because it's much harder when you have kids, et cetera, to like pick up and move. But if it's like just one person with a bed and a couch, like, you can move on to the next spot and try something new, you know? And that's kind of like what this place, like, the kind of renter it lended itself to. So I was like, I'm not going to make a ton of money in this. And the bar is low, honestly, for like total profit. So turning it into a short-term rental, there's a decent chance I can be profitable even through times that aren't maybe great, right? So I spent like 2 months like furnishing it, getting it renovated again, because it was just such a mess when I first got it. It hadn't been used in like years. And so fixing that up, and then it went live end of October. And so like my bar to clear was $450 a month after like my property management fees and stuff. So the first, I don't have the exact figures, but like in Q4 of 2019, so that was October, November, December, 1 month I grossed 2,000, 1 month I grossed 1,000, so we're at 3,000, and another month I grossed 800, so we're at 3,800. Whereas I typically only would have grossed 1,500 off of a long-term rental. So across those months, even after like holding costs and stuff, so I probably made about 1.5 to 2 times as much money during the slow season as a new rental. Without the reviews, and honestly, without really knowing what I was truly doing anyway, because I was just like, because like I'd spent a long time researching long-term rentals and understood like exactly what was involved. Short-term rentals is not it is still real estate investing, but it's also hospitality. And like, I didn't have the hospitality knowledge at all, so there was just like, I had to learn so much. But even with that was profitable. Coming into 2020, it's been a little bit different, obviously. So like February, I had a major capital expenditure. I had a heater issue. So like I had to take it offline for the entire month of February, which that definitely hurt my wallet. And then I put it back on in March and started getting bookings just for coronavirus to come in. So, but the thing is, like, I've actually been like incredibly lucky. Like a lot of Airbnb people are hurting. So, or I should say short-term rental people are hurting, but because this is not a shared space and it's like an entirely functional living space, a person can come in and not see another person for their entire stay. I was able to list it on VRBO as well. And that actually has been like a huge saving grace for me, because early March, there was a woman who needed to come up to the area to visit family. And with everything going on, she wanted to be close to her family. So she rented out my unit for 3 weeks. And I worked with her. Obviously, I definitely gave her like a really good deal.
Yeah.
Like if it was normal, like a normal environment, I definitely would have lost money. Not lost money. I wouldn't have been as profitable if I had gone with that. But I don't know, I wanted to help her out. She had some family stuff going on. And I actually agreed to this late February because I knew it was still winter. We had no idea what's going to happen. I was like, let me just lock this in. And then 2 weeks after I locked it in, like all the coronavirus stuff came up. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank God I have this renter coming in for 3 weeks. And then so she came in, she's got me through like the first part of coronavirus. And then like the week she left, or like 3 days after she left, I got another call from someone looking for the same thing, a place to live while they spent time close to their family. So I have another tenant moving in for 2 months. She's actually moving in tomorrow. So I also gave her a really good deal. I essentially am making a little bit more than I would if it were a long-term rental, just maybe a smidgen though. We're talking like $50-$60 more. So I'm probably netting like $560 a month, which at this point is just great because we are literally in like a disaster environment where people can't travel, people can go to the grocery store. It's still only like essential movement. A lot of people are working from home or not working at all. The restaurants are shut down except for like delivery and like contactless, like curbside pickup, So like, it's definitely like a difficult time. And, my goal was to get through like the quarantine breaking even at best. So like my holding costs are like maybe $300 a month. So I was like, can I just make $300 a month just so that I'm not spending money to keep this running? Mm-hmm. So to have someone coming in, to have a couple of long-term people who seemed very nice, it has certainly been just like such a blessing. Also because like there's also the rest of the business to support. And even though my tenants paid this month, I have no idea what's coming down the pike. So any cash that I can hold on to is what I'm going to need to do, So I really didn't want to spend money to keep my Airbnb afloat. I mean, if it came down to that, I would. But thankfully, it looks like at this moment that I don't have to. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's great. That's a blessing, as you say. And then I'm wondering, because you go from a long-term rental unit to a short-term rental unit, you say, I had a lot to learn. What are a few examples? Because when I think of Airbnb, what first things that come to mind is, so you need to clean up after every guest, you need to replace the towels, the bed sheets, etc.
Yeah.
Because as well. Okay, you make more money, but it's a lot more time investment as well.
And I mean, I get very anxious, so which doesn't help. But like, it's also the knowledge that if you have one or two guests who just aren't happy for whatever reason, they can totally sink your business with a bad review. And I actually had that in like December. Someone came in and I'd had like half a dozen like 5-star reviews. But then like one person came in and was like, this is the worst place I've ever seen, this, that, and the other. I don't know who all these other people are who stay here. Like, it just went on and on. She wrote me like the worst review. And I think she might have given me a star, 1 star. Oh. Yeah. And so that like really sunk my rating. And so I was actually getting emails from Airbnb saying, hey, you're now in the 1% lowest listing of Airbnbs in the world. And so things like that, it was rough, you know? But like things I learned. So there is the operational aspect and learning how to set it up, communicate with everybody. It's also like, there's also a big piece of managing expectations. So like my unit is pet friendly. I didn't explicitly say that in my listing because I didn't want everybody bringing their pets because it's like wear and tear. Like I wanted people who really wanted to stay and really needed to bring their pets to reach out to me. The downside of that is that if someone looks at your listing and they're allergic and they don't see your pet friendly, they're more likely to book. So I had a cancellation from someone who was like, yeah, I didn't know your unit was pet friendly and I can't sleep here. And they had like a month-long reservation. I canceled, you know? And so that, like things like that, like how do you manage those expectations? And it's also smaller things. So like it is a small unit. It's like 400 square feet split across 2 floors. And people will come in and be like, this is really small. I was like, well, yeah, I said 400 square feet, but like I learned to put other words in, you know, like very cozy, like this, that, and the other, so that I can frame their expectations that it is a small space, you know, and then like just different things that they might have not expected that might detract from their experience. You know, I try to keep saying that, like bringing attention to that so that they know what's going on. Like there's a set of stairs, right? And it is a little bit on the steeper side. So when someone's like, hey, I'm coming into town, I have kids. And I'm like, are you sure? Like you want to stay here? How old are your children? Like the stairs are a little bit steeper. I want to make sure that you're aware and you're okay with that. You know, and they're like, okay, no, my kids are like 10. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. But I don't want a 2-year-old around. I don't have a baby gate. Like I don't want, there are other aspects that I want to kind of mitigate. So it's really trying to like set up your listing for success before the guest ever steps in, you know? And I always try to keep like open communication. And when I send them like welcome message, like make sure I say, you know, hey, if there's any reason you're not having a 5-star stay, let me know as soon as you can so that I can change your mind, meet your expectations, and make sure that you do have a 5-star stay. Because at the end of the day, I need those 5-star ratings to keep this business going, you know? And so like that's another thing that I learned, like learning how to manage the communication and the expectations. And then the other kind of drawback that I felt like I had at the beginning was, you know, for those who have stayed at Airbnbs, like with the host there, sometimes meeting the host is like the best part of it. You know, you build these relationships, you build these bonds with these people, and like you learn so much from them. It's a really amazing experience. And if you meet a host and you get along with them really well, and maybe the Airbnb isn't perfect or there are like a few things that are a little off, you're less likely to like discount them because you know that they're trying and they're good people, right? So you've built that emotional connection, you've built that relationship. When I live an hour away from my unit there, and I have a full-time job. Like there is no way I can get out to the unit to meet a lot of the guests, to meet the majority of the guests. You know, I have like they're allowed to check themselves in and stuff, and so I needed to find a way to build that relationship, like over the phone, over email, which at first was hard. Like at first I was definitely more real estate investor, transactional. Hey, how are you? Friendly, but like direct and to the point, you know? And I mean, I think you've had enough conversations with me to know that is my personality. But it can, with that approach, you don't get to know the person, you know? And so like, since then I've really worked on being more friendly. Like what if my best friend who I didn't talk to in 2 months messaged me and said, hey, how would I respond? Like, and using that energy to respond to the guests so that they feel like warm and welcomed right away. And then try to get to know them. Like, I'll share like little tidbits of like something that's a little bit personal, like, but not like really personal, to show that like I'm a human. And then they usually kind of come back with something, and then you have something to like work with as you get them ready to check in and stuff. You can build that connection. And I've actually had several guests like who I found out like they're from the area where I travel to a lot, because that's where my company's headquarters are, you know? And so like we have like this connection, we talk, like, and that has saved me like when some things have gone wrong. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
So like just, working on building those relationships has been really, really key for me as well.
Oh, that's cool. It's, you know, I have all images of TripAdvisors, going to hotels in my head now, you know, but it's really like it's hospitality.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So has your approach changed if you've been to hotels since then? When you go to a hotel, do you pay attention to other stuff, to new stuff now?
Yeah, I do, because I kind of, well, more so when I'm at other Airbnbs, I pay more attention. I'm like, what are they doing that is making me feel more comfortable, right? Mm-hmm. So like before, when I first started Airbnb, like I had like a coffee pot, I had like a big like thing of like economy size coffee beans, and I had like some creamer and the original packaging. Like I was like, okay, it's great. Again, like that transactional mindset, you know, like they have what they need for coffee, they're fine. But if you want to elevate it, like I then was like, okay, that's great. But when you go into an Airbnb and if you like your coffee, would you rather see like something from Costco or like Walmart or like Target or whatever, the thing, or do you want to see like a cute little setup, you know? It sounds stupid saying that, but like it really does help, you know? And so like I got like these little like bamboo top jars, which are actually like probably $5 in all, and like these little labels that I could stick on them and like hand wrote notes, you know, on the labels. I got a little letterboard on the front door, and it says like, welcome to the Cozy Carriage House. So happy to have you. Like just like these little things that like make the place feel more comfortable and more like home, and like a slight elevation, like little boxes for like the extra toilet paper, little bins, like these woven bins that were not expensive. Because I went like the day after Christmas when everything was on sale and got like little things to decorate the apartment and keep things like organized and just looking nice for the guests, while also allowing me to give them what they needed, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's just like those little tiny touches can really make a place feel like more fancy when it really costs like $5. I think those little things are really important.
Yeah, but that's great. It's funny because I agree with all you say, and I can imagine it. I'm not doing it myself, but then, you know, when I think of long-term rental, is you buy the stuff, you do a lot of work up front,
and then you're done.
And then you collect your paychecks, and okay, you look for a new tenant now and then. But okay, then your return on investment is lower as well. It's a lot of work. It sounds like a lot of work. It depends on if you do it well. It depends on it. Nothing's guaranteed, right? Like there's higher risk, but higher potential reward in short-term rentals. But it's also more volatile and more seasonal. So it really depends, because like in the winter and stuff, like you can not have anybody travel. So it just depends on whether you can build that business model and provide an offering that people want. Mm-hmm. And did you find information on how to run a successful Airbnb as well on Bigger Pockets forums, or did you find your ideas somewhere else?
Some on Bigger Pockets, yeah. Some on Bigger Pockets. I had some friends who were big in Airbnb, so thank God for that, because they were the ones who were there for me when I got like that 2-star review and I was crying. Like having a good support system and a good network of investors is like everything. And then also like podcasts. There are a lot of podcasts that are geared specifically towards Airbnb, and those have been helpful. Like just getting like 1 or 2 tidbits per podcast has been really, really good. So have been doing that. It's just, yeah, there's so many ways to learn. It's just kind of putting your head down and getting through it.
Okay, very good. And then looking forward to the future, Suni, you own these properties, you own your Airbnb rental. What's in store for you? Okay, the virus crisis, it's a pain, but okay. Aside from that, what are the future plans? Plans in 3, 5, 10 years?
I'm going to continue to grow my business. So I'm definitely I definitely want to buy like at least one more place by the end of this year. I'm probably going to like utilize like the US lending system of not having to put too much down in terms of a down payment for another house to live in. So I'm probably going to move in the summer, and then I'm going to save up my cash and try to find properties that I can get into with my investors that are still good deals, because I think their properties will be more and more discounted with the way things are looking as time goes on. But that's not a reason to not buy if the numbers are right. So I'll still be like trying to grow this business. My eventual goal, I have a net income goal that I am shooting for. And once I hit that, I hope to hit that by 2026 or so. Then I would like to transition out of my corporate job. Potentially, I'm still evaluating that. But I would really like to focus on real estate more and like do some nonprofit work, and then like travel and just live a more balanced life than I'm living right now.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of work now. And any more Airbnb ventures, or will you will stick to that one and that's it?
Yeah, for now, I'm just sticking to that one because it is a smaller unit, and because I still think if there is that's kind of what's hard. Like with the COVID, like right now we're in a disaster like time frame. You know, like that's the environment we're in. When this kind of, even when we start to transition out, there's still likely to be a downturn. So I'm waiting to see what that downturn looks like and how that impacts business. I think with it being a small unit, I have more flexibility to drop my price to something that's affordable, and still be profitable. So I think I can still keep it profitable as a short-term rental. And also, like historically, like hotels, the hotel industry does see a drop during downturns, but it's only 25%. So if I'm making 1.5 to 2x my net profit, and I drop it 25%, then it's still more profitable than a long-term rental, which is always like my base point. Like I can always shift it back to a long-term if I have to, but I'm hoping that I can still keep that going. I'm not ready to turn any of my bigger units into an Airbnb, not anytime soon. I was told it takes like a year, especially because Airbnbs are more seasonal, to best understand the pricing strategy and how to kind of optimize your listing and the profits. But I've been in this only a few months, and now I'm not only trying to understand the seasonality, but like there's this big wrench of like a virus and a downturn and everything else. So it's definitely going to take me a little bit more time to figure out how to optimize my unit. So I would like to best understand that before I take on something else.
Yeah, I understand. And for the listeners who are interested in entering the wonderful world of real estate investing, would you have any like startup tips, 2 or 3 tips for them to how to get started?
I think the biggest thing is just to like educate yourself and to keep peeling back those layers of that onion, because people stop too early, don't fully understand what's going on. And especially in these times when there's a lot of change, you know, it's before people it was like just like riding the upward wave. Like being successful as a real estate investor was like, I heard someone say it's like hitting water when you fall out of a boat because like it was just like everything just kept going up. So it was hard to go wrong. But now there's a lot more ways to go wrong, you know? So I think just being very careful and knowing what you're getting into and how you're going to support that through like worst case scenarios is like my biggest tip.
No, very good, Suni. I really like it. And thanks for sharing your story and your real estate ventures with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we close the show, we always have our 3 quick fire questions I ask every guest. So my number 1 question to you is, what has been your best investment so far, Suni?
I still think it's going to be that first purchase that I bought with the one that I turned into an Airbnb. Times are a little bit tougher right now, but in terms of how much it's appreciated and the net cash flow versus how much I owe, it's done pretty well. So like I purchased it we're in 2020, April of 2018. And last year I went in to refinance it with the bank, and they ran an appraisal on it, and it had appraised 50%.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So between the appraisal as well as the fact that it's even when both units are long-term rentals, like it's very profitable. Like I think that will probably be my best.
Excellent. And then my second quick-fire question, what is the best book you have read or you would recommend to anybody? And it does not need to be financial or about real estate.
So one of the best books that was sent to me this year was Harvard, the university out in Boston. They the business school puts out like these cases and these books on like different subjects. So I had one sent to me earlier this year that was on emotional intelligence. And I think like emotional intelligence is hugely important, not only for your personal life, but also if you're trying to build a business and trying to lead others and you're working with a lot of other people. It's really imperative to success to be able to like self-regulate, to be able to show empathy, to be able to understand where other people are coming from emotionally, because at the end of the day, we would all like to think that we're rational, logical human beings, but we're really like emotion driven, you know? So I think like that was a really good find. And then there's also, I just started reading Black Swan by Nassim Taleb. I always mispronounce it, but like I really love that book. It's like about thinking, about risk, about how people make decisions, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that is, there are a lot of good takeaways in that book as well.
Yeah, this book, I received it from a friend a few years ago. I still have it. I haven't opened it yet.
You should read it.
And first, when he gave it to me, I thought it was about the movie with the Mathieu Kassovitz and the ballerinas, but apparently not. So
yeah, no, it's a really good book. Like a lot of like my friends who are some of the smartest people I know and the most successful people I know in like the finance industry have all recommended this book and like his work in general. And now I see why. So I would highly, highly recommend.
Okay, very good. And just about the business case you mentioned. So is it a business case we can download from their website?
No, that's actually a book.
That's
so they
book.
do have cases, but they also have books. And so like, yeah, this is a book that you can buy. It's just called Emotional Intelligence by the Harvard Business Review, I think. Yeah.
Okay, I'll find it out and I'll link it in the show notes. And okay, then Sunitha, the last question. What is the best purchase you've made for under $100?
I'm glad you gave me advance notice on this one. So my best purchase was actually free. There was a cost to it. So I got...
It's free, but there's a cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not always monetary. So I got like this email from Google, I think something having to do with like my G Suite account and like my Spotify account, something. Anyway, they sent me a free speaker and all I had to do was give them access to my Spotify playlist. So now they have like all the data with all the music that I listen to and probably all the data since it's related to Google. They have like everything about me anyway. So that was actually the best purchase because like I'll play it when I'm like listening to podcasts. I'll play it when I'm like listening to music and cleaning and doing whatever. Like I use that thing I love my speakers. So I mean the quality is not great because it was free essentially, but it's good for someone who's frugal who likes to have like that sound around. So that was the best purchase that I made.
Okay, very good. And you know, every year now, when you're on Spotify, then you get your statistics, the music you listen the most to. So whatever, if it's free or not, I mean, your data is anywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah. And you know what's actually really crazy was like a month or so. So my parents are Indian. I've never listened to like Bollywood music or anything like that. But I started getting all these recommendations on Spotify for like Bollywood music. And only now is it making sense why that was happening.
Yeah.
As I'm telling you the story, I'm like, oh my gosh. Because I was sitting there looking at my Spotify playlist going, how did they know this? Like, I don't understand what is happening. But now I know.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. And Suni, it's really funny. And Suni, where can people find out more about you or about your real estate ventures? Are you online or on social media or?
Yes. So I'm on Instagram and I have a website. My Instagram is Griffix Property Group. That's the name of my company. It is spelled GRIFFIX Property Group. And then my website is the same. It's griffixpropertygroup.com.
Okay, very cool. I'll link it in the show notes and people can find you. Just click and that's it. So, Suni, thanks again. Thanks so much for sharing your stories and your tips on real estate, on investing in real estate. I think it was very helpful and I think you'll get a lot of comments on your Instagram.
I need those followers.
Yeah, so yeah.
So I can become an influencer.
Yeah, become a real estate
Make some more money.
influencer and beat bigger pockets.
Yeah.
No, that's hard, but hey, who knows? Anyway, so thanks again, and I'll speak to you soon, Suni.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it was great to reconnect with my friend Suni and talking after so long. So I hope that you enjoyed the conversation as well and that you learned something from it. And before we head off, here are the key takeaways for today. Number 1. Real estate investing by buying and holding properties is a great way to front-load the work, get semi-passive income and appreciation in perpetuity if done well. And notice the word semi-passive income because nothing is truly passive. I mean, you need to do a lot of work upfront, and as well you will need to maintain your property, replace, find new tenants, etc. So I like that she used the word semi-passive. Next, the power of real estate investing lies in leveraging all the creative financing opportunities. By using little money or even other people's money, for example, the seller financing option that she talked about, you can achieve larger returns on your investments. Yeah, you'll need to see what is possible in your country. We discussed some opportunities in the US. And for example, for myself, I managed to tap into the equity of my apartment in Norway. So it is possible abroad, you just need to see what's possible locally. The next point is about Bigger Pockets, which is a great resource. And it's a great resource not only for US investors, it is also great inspiration and a great network opportunity if you live outside of the US. And moving on now to the Airbnb. If you choose to run an Airbnb, well, you already know about the extra work involved. I mean, the towels, the bed sheets that you need to replace. But in addition, you'll need to switch your approach to, I am a hospitality professional, rather than a transactional and emotionless investor. Yeah, the Airbnb offers a higher return on investment than a long-term rental, but it will require more work, as I said. It is more volatile and seasonal. So, higher risk, higher reward, as they say, right? And I'll just conclude with the tip of Suni. For those just getting started, well, do your own research. Find out what is right for you by peeling the layers of that real estate onion. So that was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you subscribe in Apple Podcast. And of course, please do not hesitate to contact me. If you have any questions or feedback, send me an email, john@johnnytalks.com, or connect through social media at Johnny Talks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And amigos, once more, thanks so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.